I'm very sorry that I can't be there with you today, but I do hope this presentation is of interest to you despite my absence. My name's Adam Leyland, and I'm going to talk to you today about students as assessment designers, which is something I did in a master's level module last year. So scholars explored self and peer assessments, which has been proven to have a long-lasting effect on the learning students take from their assessments. So this project was aimed to explore a creative and innovative new approach on the master's programme to allow students the opportunity to collaborate on the design of assessment marking criteria for a group-led seminar. And this provided the students with a greater understanding of the requirements of the assessment, and as they designed the criteria, they could comprehend how to increase their own grades. This further promotes the ability for them to be self-reflective. So in the Coventry University Assessment Strategy of 2015 to 2021 by Gearing, this approach is supported in that the recommendations that assessments are transparent, integrated and support equal attainment. So using this approach, the students were able to develop further abilities which encourage them to identify standards and criteria and then learn how this is applied within their own work, which should contribute to other assessments overall as well. So Waller in 2016 identified that learning outcomes and assessments need consistency in establishing learning and to ensure that the approach is based upon the student outcomes overall. Therefore, providing an opportunity for the students to create the marking criteria for group assessment appeared to be an appropriate and innovative way to align the module learning outcomes with those individual outcomes as well. This allowed the students to identify areas that they could be marked upon, which was then divided into two sections, the group and the individual mark. So having the students involved in the process gives them the prior knowledge of the expectations, and this in turn increases their motivation with the task. So the design of this innovation was to provide students with an opportunity to develop their own agreed marking criteria for a group assessment. The criteria is split into two sections, the individual grade and the group grade, and then students put their suggestions onto a Padlet page which was provided during the lesson and left open for 1 week. They were then able to grade the suggestions with the most likes, and those were then included in the final version. The sections were then weighted by the lecturer and then displayed to the students so they knew what to expect. Furthermore, as the students developed this, the feedback provided will be more appropriate to them, as it was their suggestions about what would be most useful to them in the first place. So the final criteria was then presented back to students in a lesson, but also displayed for them on the learning platform. So here's an example of how the Padlet page looked, and you can see that students were able to add in their own suggestions, and then there's different rating from a star point of view and how many people had rated them as well. So we were able to convert this for both the group assessment and the individual assessment into that structured framework for their marking criteria overall. So once we'd completed the assessment and marks had been released, we embarked on an evaluation of the innovation itself. The evaluation took the form in the positivist paradigm, and so we measured on a 5-point Likert scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree, and the students were asked 5 questions relating to contribution, involvement, understanding, awareness, and their use of the marking criteria, with the final question being a yes or no question. So the format was on Bristol online survey, and the participation was voluntary whilst it was open to everybody as well. So as you can see on the screen now, how did the students get on? So overall, an overwhelming response to how they felt able to contribute to the marking criteria and the fact that they liked it in high percentages as well. What the evaluation did find was 6.5% of the students stated that their contribution did not make them more aware of what was expected. But most worrying, and in contradiction to the literature, 15.2% of the students did not actually look at the criteria during their presentation. And that was quite a surprise, really. But perhaps asking a further question would have determined exactly why this was the case. Maybe because they contributed in the design, they did not feel the need to consult the criteria. But these misconceptions can have serious impact on student learning overall. So in conclusion, all the students did successfully pass the assessment, and that could be correlated to their involvement in the marking criteria. So grades range between 59 and 80% with an average score of 67.85%. So although the results demonstrate that students were receptive and engaged with the innovation, it was surprising that the 15% did not actually look at the criteria in preparation of their assessment. Although the 85% that did review it, it's really unclear what that percentage would be for standard courseworks where the students aren't designing their own marking criteria. So clearly there is further work that can be done to improve student designed assessments and some additional research to determine its effectiveness for other assessments as well. But I do believe increasing the understanding of and designing assessment marking criteria does have a benefit to the student in achieving their best possible grade. And this frames the relationship between the lecturer and the student as collaborative, which in turn will hopefully increase the student's confidence as well. And the feedback reviewed from this process can now be used to enhance the way students feel more aware of their expectations as postgraduate students at Coventry University. There are, of course, areas for learning to help with other coursework marking criteria, and future projects could include the student designed assessment, which is evaluated to determine the relationships between their design and the outcomes overall. Naturally, with anything like this, there are limitations. So the nature of the project is quite time consuming for both students and the lecturer, but the results really demonstrated a good level of engagement with the marking criteria, which could be correlated to the higher marks awarded as well. Although, caution with that, the higher grades could be attributed to the activity, which was a group project, and therefore the weighting of the marks for the group activity provided 60% of the final grade compared to 40% for the individual aspect. But this could be weighted differently to add a different perspective on the assessment as well. Using Padlet also assisted in the development of the digital skills for students and provided them an interactive space to engage with one another, albeit in an anonymised manner. And it was extensively used throughout the module so that when students encountered this for this project, they were more accustomed to its use. However, you can use more traditional methods for similar projects if you wish to do something like this as well. So overall, I think the project engaged students with the marking criteria for their coursework. It provided a simple feedback method which explored what the students wanted to be assessed on, and then this was used to provide individual feedback to the students. It can then help their personal development and any future coursework that they're going to do as well. So creating a sense of ownership of the criteria supported the students in their understanding of how the marking criteria related to their coursework task. And for staff, this project provided a forum to engage the students in the coursework and help to form the relationships as criteria was explored during that lesson as well. It also assisted some staff with their digital skills and helped staff to learn what are the student expectations from coursework and what are the expectations from lecturers as well. On the screen now there is a QR code which takes you to the Padlet page. If you do have any questions at all or any comments, please do email me, adam.leyland@coventry.ac.uk, or you can follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Have a great day at the staff conference.